Good morning, and thanks for joining us for today's luncheon conversation as part of our Aging at Altitude series. Today's topic is the health effects of cannabis and CBD. My name is Al Manzi. I'm president and CEO for Prairie Mountain Media and also the publisher for the Times Call and the Daily Camera. Today, we're really fortunate to have Penny Komes. She's a communication manager with Terrapin Care Station, and she's also got a master's degree in public health. Now, Penny will speak for about 35 to 45 minutes, and at the end, I will monitor what I expect to be a very vibrant Q&A session. Please feel free to use your Q&A or your chat functions on your device anytime during the presentation, and we'll organize the questions for Penny at the end. Please remember also to visit our and support our partners, and you can do that through the Aging at Altitude website by giving it a good look. So please join me in welcoming Penny Komes.
Hi, everybody. Let me get my presentation up for you guys. All right. So thank you all so much for logging on today as we discuss the health effects of cannabis and CBD as a part of this wonderful Aging at Altitude series. I'm really grateful that all of you have decided to log on and spend some of your day learning about this very complex but also very fantastic wellness tool that we call cannabis. As Al said, my name is Penny Komes. I do have a master's of public health from the University of Missouri, and I'm currently working with Terrapin Care Station as a communications manager. Terrapin Care Station has 6 locations throughout the Front Range, and we are a vertically integrated dispensary chain. We also have medical processing and cultivation facilities in both Pennsylvania and Michigan, and we are expanding to Missouri this year as well, so a lot of growth. So while I've been with the Terrapin team for about 2 years, I have been educating myself and others about cannabis since about 2015. So I'm really excited to impart a little bit of that knowledge to you guys today. All right, so first I kind of want to go over a little bit about my journey to cannabis. I find that these stories are really effective in really reflecting how positively cannabis can impact people's lives. And so I'll answer a question that I have been receiving for a long time now from my parents, from my professors when I was in school, and even now from some of my professional peers. They wonder why I advocate so hard for cannabis and why it is so important to me to educate others about cannabis. And I hope that, again, this story will help you at least understand how many patients across the United States are feeling as medical cannabis patients. You know, even if you walk away from this conversation and you never try a cannabis product in the rest of your life, I hope you can empathize a little bit with the medical patients who are seeing such great positive benefit from cannabis. So to me, medical cannabis has always been a huge representation of empowerment. And there is a very specific reason for that, the way I feel. I've personally dealt with a pretty intense muscle dysfunction for the past 7 years. It took a really long time to diagnose, and it has taken an even longer time to find appropriate treatment for. You know, as a 22-year-old, when you are on the couch and cannot move for several days out of the month, it can become very disheartening. It can make you lose a little bit of hope. But luckily, at the time that I was experiencing the first symptoms of this dysfunction, I had just moved to Washington, D.C. And it was a cool time in Washington, D.C. because they had just decriminalized cultivating and consuming personal cannabis crops. So it was in the headlines. I was reading so much about this miracle plant. And so I decided to try to dive in and learn a little bit more. And so I decided to check out the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, as we call them, their Washington, D.C. chapter. And I will be honest, when I first wanted to walk into those events, I was a little bit nervous. You know, you have a little bit of an expectation of what you're going to see in a group called the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. But it was incredible. I walked in and I was met with so much kindness, so much knowledge on both the plant and products that could help my personal issues. And more than that, I heard stories just like my own. I heard so many people who had been dealing with dysfunctions or debilitating issues who have found relief through cannabis. So because of this, I became a huge advocate for cannabis because I also saw a lot of great success. I was spending way less time on my couch. I was able again to be way more active and get out in the community and do the things that I love to do. So again, this made me a very passionate advocate as for cannabis as a public health tool. And I do want to clarify that this is a public health tool in my opinion, because I'm sure as most of you know, primary care and public health are very different. And in America, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to access that primary care. Especially through COVID, it has even gotten harder for lots of members of our community to visit a doctor sometimes. But cannabis is always consistently and pretty easily accessible to adults here in Colorado. So because of that consistency, I think that it is a public health tool because the public always has access to it. And because of that, I think you guys should be educated a little bit on the effects of cannabis and how it's really working in your body. So that is why I love cannabis and why I am so excited to bring this information to you guys today. And I will note, I advocate for cannabis as a public health tool, but I will add a huge but here. I am not going to be a snake oil salesman. I will never tell you that cannabis should entirely replace your primary care. You still need to be keeping up with your doctor's appointments. You still need to be working with your medication. I would never say that cannabis should replace all of your health tools. It is just what I call a tool in my wellness kit, in addition to other things that I'm utilizing to, live the best life that I can with optimum health. So next, I wanted to go over some of the health issues that are prevalent in the aging population, since that is probably what most of you would consider yourselves. So as you can see, I have a list here of the most common chronic illnesses faced by this population, and research shows us that 80% of the aging population will deal with one of these chronic illnesses, and 77% will deal with two at least. So having another tool in your wellness kit to kind of deal with these chronic ailments or issues is very important. And another important element of this population is that it's only growing. As you can see from this graphic from the State Demographer's Office in 2012, the 65 and older population comprised about 12% of the population. From the 2019 census, it was found to be around 15%. And by 2040, it'll be about 20% of the population. So you guys deserve to be educated and know about this kind of public health tool. As a growing population that might be dealing with more ailments than other populations, I think that this could be a really useful information for you guys moving forward. And it's also important to note that this presentation is also very important because a lot of the aging population grew up in a time where we were not looking at cannabis from this medicinal perspective. We grew up in the just say no era, learning that there were no benefits, but only harm. So I think that educating this population about cannabis is just extremely important at this juncture, especially when you have access to it, very consistently as a Colorado population. And I also wanted to provide some research about the aging population and consumption of cannabis. As you can see from the first two studies I outlined, cannabis use in this population has been associated with an increase in the quality of life for many seniors, which I think is pretty incredible. Additionally, it has been named a safe and effective therapy for chronic pain. I myself have noticed this and experienced it, and I can say that it's good to know that the doctors are also coming around and saying that this is both safe and effective. And I will say that senior use of cannabis has risen about 75% in America in the last 3 years, and more Americans are leaning towards supporting medical marijuana legalization. 48% of Americans 65 and older now support it, and about 2/3 of all American adults support at least legalizing medical cannabis. So, the tides are changing. We are looking at it through that medicinal perspective now. So again, it just reinforces to me that I would love for you guys to learn a little bit more about this plant today. And then one final caveat before we get down to the nitty gritty, kind of get on with the show. I really, really recommend that before you start incorporating cannabis or CBD into your wellness routines, you speak to a physician or a cannabis nurse. Now, I know that some doctors are particularly uncomfortable talking about cannabis with their patients. A lot of doctors did not learn this curriculum in their medical school. And so it's understandable that they might be a little bit hesitant to talk to you about it. So I wanted to provide you guys with a resource that is available Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. In Colorado, and it is called Leaf 411. LEAF 411. And if you look them up, this is a service that is staffed by cannabis nurses. They will be able to talk to you a little bit more about the specific symptoms that you're dealing with and want to alleviate with cannabis. They'll also be able to talk to you a little bit about the safety of incorporating cannabis into your wellness routine. This is just an extra important step when it comes to being a responsible consumer, which is what we really want from everybody who is consuming cannabis. We want responsible consumers who are seeing the benefits or effects that they want to see from these products. So it is fundamentally important to be discussing this with either a physician or some sort of nurse. All right, I promise the disclaimers are over. So what exactly is cannabis? As you can see here, there are 3 types of cannabis, and they are plants with some psychoactive properties. And the 3 types are cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and cannabis ruderalis. You will probably be more familiar with indica and sativa strains because those are what is most available in America. And as you can see from our fun infographic, there are several parts to the cannabis plant that we could be talking about when we talk about cannabis. You have your stems, leaves, buds, and flowers. But as an industry, we are mostly concerned with the flowers because when flower is harvested and dried, you're left with the flower marijuana that many of us are familiar with. And the flowers will also have a higher concentration of the cannabinoids, which are actually the thing in the cannabis plant giving you that medical benefit. As you know, there are various strains of cannabis, and there are various methods of consumption. And depending on the way you consume and the dose that you consume at, you will have different effects, and they will last from several minutes to several hours. And we'll go over a lot of that information today. So next, I want to introduce you guys to your endocannabinoid system. If we were all together in person, I'd make us say it as a group, but just one more time, it's the endocannabinoid system. And we all have one, even though it was discovered in the 1990s. So a lot of us are not aware of its existence. Every single person has this going on in their body. I have a layman's definition of the ECS up here on screen, but essentially what the endocannabinoid system is doing is it's working to help regulate your body processes. It's helping you reach homeostasis is what is the technical term. Essentially, when your fight or flight response is activated, your endocannabinoid system starts working immediately to ameliorate the stress that you're feeling. And the endocannabinoid system is actually comprised of 3 components that I'll discuss now. The first is endocannabinoids. Now, these are cannabinoids that your body is naturally producing at all times, again, in response to stress or in the fight or flight response. So they're being made inside your body. You do not have to consume cannabis to have endocannabinoids in your system. The second part of the endocannabinoid system are the cannabinoid receptors. They're reading the molecules and kind of telling your body how to react to those endocannabinoids or cannabinoids that come into your body. And then the last thing that is a part of your endocannabinoid system is the enzymes that break down endocannabinoids. And as you can see through this fun infographic, you have 2 different types of cannabinoid receptors. They're CB1 and CB2. CB1 receptors are commonly found in the nervous system, so a lot in your brain and dealing with that, whereas CB2 will be more immune system, gastrointestinal tract, and female reproductive system. You know, they're all throughout your body, though, CB1 and CB2. It's just that one is a little bit more connected to the nervous system. And next, let's talk a little bit about cannabinoids and how your endocannabinoid system will process some of the cannabinoids as you ingest them or consume them. So, cannabinoids are perhaps the most confusing part about learning about cannabis. You know, a lot of the information about cannabinoids is very, very recent. From the 1990s to today, we've done a ton of research. A mass influx of knowledge has come in. However, a lot of that knowledge has not been imparted to the public. So again, another benefit of you guys logging on today is you're going to learn something that a lot of people don't know about, even regular cannabis consumers. So cannabinoids are naturally occurring chemicals. They exist in both hemp and cannabis plant species. They all have unique properties. You know, THC is the one that many of us are familiar with. It's the psychoactive, it will make you feel the intoxicating high benefit. But another very popular cannabinoid, as you have probably seen many advertisements for, is CBD or cannabidiol. So those are the most common ones, but there are a lot more. And as you can see from this little infographic, there are a couple more names, and I just wanted to go over a couple more that might help specifically with the aging population and some of the health issues that they face. So first, let's go over cannabinol, CBN, on this chart. It was one of the first, it was the first cannabinoid that was isolated by cannabis researchers, which is a pretty cool little fact. There is really promising research on its effects and its medicinal benefit for specific conditions such as glaucoma, arthritis, and degenerative neurological disease like ALS. It's also been found to be really effective to helping people with insomnia. It's a very good sleep aid. My fiance does use CBN in our lives when he's having issues falling or staying asleep. So it's important to know that CBN has some psychoactive qualities, but it's not as much as THC, which again will have the most intoxicating feeling associated with it. And then I just want to go over one more called cannabigerol, CBG. It's one of the newer discoveries that we found, but it has had a ton of promising research. It's also found in trace amounts in every species of plant. You know, some will have more, some will have less, but it is found in most plants. The research on CBG is particularly promising for a couple of health conditions because there are a couple of cannabinoid receptors in the body that it really likes to bind to. So specifically for glaucoma, the CBG uptakes to CB or cannabinoid receptors behind your eyes. It really helps decrease the pressure and pain that you might be feeling with that. And additionally, it has been found to be really effective for people dealing with spasms in their bladder, so incontinence issues. So it could be really effective for either of those conditions. So it's one of those ones that you might want to look out for if you deal with either of those conditions. So just wanted to throw out a couple more out there since we're all kind of familiar with the THC and CBD. But again, to review, cannabinoids are just naturally occurring chemical compounds that are found in both hemp and cannabis plants. Certain cannabinoids can help better with certain conditions. So it's really interesting and important to kind of dig in and do some research if you are looking for a very specific type of relief or if you're dealing with a very specific condition. All right, so if all cannabis plants have different buildups of the cannabinoids, how do we choose exactly what type of cannabis we might want to use if we want to use cannabis at all? As you can see from this fun infographic that I borrowed from the blog Green Candy, there are three different strains of cannabis, and this is how we kind of classify them generally in the dispensary. So you have sativa, indica, and hybrid. So sativa and indica were named as pure species on that first slide that we talked about cannabis. And so these are the two that you'll hear the most about. While there are a few pure sativas and pure indicas left, you will find hybrids that lean one way or the other. So with indica, the physical appearance of those plants is a little bit shorter, the leaves are a little bit wider, and the associated effects are different than the sativa in that they are really, in that indica is really good at relaxing, decreasing stress and anxiety. It's associated with more sleepy time kind of assistance, whereas sativa strains, you will have different effects. They are different physically by being taller and skinnier than the indica plants. But they have uplifting effects, and it's less of that tiring, drowsy kind of effect. But again, I did want to note there are hybrid strains, and in fact, most strains that you will find at the dispensaries these days are considered hybrids. There are very few pure indica and pure sativa strains left because of the way that we have worked with cannabis genetics. So it's just kind of a result of our industry. But the benefit here is that with the abundance of hybrid strains, if you do smoke a strain and somebody says that it's indica leaning, but you're finding that you don't have that relief, that drowsy effect, or the sleep aid that you want, that doesn't necessarily mean that all indicas will not work for you. It might mean that that hybrid strain had some sativa properties that were giving you an effect that you didn't necessarily want. So, it does come to a lot of testing it out, testing different strains. For me, I know what my favorite strains are. Everybody is different. Everybody's body is processing these different. So while we can classify things as sativa, indica, and hybrid, what works for you works for you. And I hope that we can help find what will work for you throughout this presentation. All right, so we have gone over the different types of strains and cannabinoids, but there are some consumers who really don't want to get high. They don't want to feel the effects of THC. So first, it is important to remind that THC is going to be that cannabinoid that gives you those psychoactive effects. It will give you those more intoxicating feelings. So if you want to avoid those, then the recommendation is to start off with high CBD products. You can find hemp products, which will have less than 0.3% THC in them, and those will not give you those same effects as a general THC product. So what is CBD? CBD is, again, another cannabinoid. It's believed to modulate or lessen the effects of THC. So in other words, strains and products that are high in CBD will have fewer psychoactive effects. Therefore, it's beneficial for helping people who are either marijuana naive or, just want to kind of dip their toe in the pool rather than jump right in, which is more than understandable. Some products that contain high CBD content, they have strains of flower that have high CBD content. They also have things like tinctures. I personally use a tincture every day for CBD consumption. There's a variety of products now. But that being said, CBD does work in synergy with THC. This is called the Entourage Effect. Essentially, what the Entourage Effect posits is that, CBD is less bioavailable in your body. And so it's going to bind a little bit less to those receptors. And if you want to lessen or maximize the health benefit and minimize the intoxicating benefit, then high CBD products are recommended. Additionally, I would like to note that edible and ingestible CBD options will often take time to adjust in your body. It wants to work consistently with that endocannabinoid system. So if you are using something like a tincture or an edible and you're not seeing those instant results, that can frequently be just a patience thing. So consistency in consumption and patience is really key if you're mostly working with those high CBD products. So I just want to say, if you do try something and you're not seeing it, that it's that miracle thing that everybody's been talking about, it might just be a matter of waiting a little bit longer and consuming a little bit more. So I want to go a little bit more into the entourage effect. I have a layman's definition up here on the slide. But as we discussed earlier, THC is necessary for the proper absorption and the optimum benefits of CBD, which again is called the entourage effect. All cannabis plants will have trace amounts of many cannabinoids, including THC. Please know and understand that hemp products in particular will have such a small amount of THC that you likely will not feel those psychoactive benefits, but it will help you maximize the medicinal benefit. As I said earlier, the threshold for hemp plants is 0.3% THC. So just having a little bit of it, we call this full spectrum CBD, that does have different cannabinoids. It would be the one on the right side of this infographic, will work a little bit better than something that is isolated, like the product on the left. Okay, awesome. All right, and now we can get into the fun stuff, talk a little bit about consumption methods and things that you might want to try in your own life. So as you can see from this info or from this slide, we have four primary consumption methods for cannabis: inhalation, ingestion, topical, and oral mucosal. And each of these will have their own pros and cons. So let's kind of get into all of them. Inhalation, if you have encountered cannabis in a past life, this is probably the method that you use to consume. Inhalation will give a really rapid onset of therapeutic therapeutic effects and euphoria. It's usually about 5 to 10 minutes after inhaling. People smoke flower products, but there is another way to inhale cannabis if you are not necessarily comfortable inhaling smoke, and that's called vaporizing. Vape products are widely available now. So if you want rapid onset, but you don't want to smoke, you don't want to have the negative effects of smoke, vaporizing is the way to go. Next, we'll talk a little bit about ingestion. As you can see here, they're the fun edible products like the pop brownies and stuff. For ingestion, you will absorb the cannabinoids through your digestive tract, and it will be processed in the liver. And so because it's processing in the liver, it takes a little bit of a longer time to feel the onset of the therapeutic effect. Generally between 30 minutes and 2 hours, depending on the metabolic rate of whoever is ingesting it. So for this reason, because the onset might be a little bit later, dosage is incredibly important when it comes to ingestion methods. Like I will discuss that a little bit later when we talk about dosage. But again, what we say with edibles in particular is start low and go slow when you start ingesting cannabis products. So the next one we'll talk about is oral mucosal absorption. As you can see from the picture here, it's when you are absorbing the cannabinoids in your mouth lining and under your tongue. Though you are putting it in that region, you will feel the effects throughout your body. It will still be absorbed by cannabinoid receptors all over your body. Again, this is a really rapid onset of relief. It will be, I think, 5 to 15 minutes for you to feel the effect if you are using a tincture with this oral mucosal method. Again, I use one every day. It's an easy way to keep up with a CBD routine. Just one pump a day, and it's all good. And then the last one I want to talk to you guys about is topical products. So topical products are absorbed through the skin. you're going to want to make sure that whatever product that you use as a topical does say that it has a transdermal property to it. So you can make sure that the cannabinoids don't just sit on your skin, that they're actually being absorbed. Topicals are fantastic when it comes to regional pain. Unlike the oral mucosal method, you put it on the one spot and you feel it on the one spot. You will not feel it throughout the rest of your body. This can be particularly useful if you're dealing with something like arthritis or carpal tunnel. We even have products that will help you with migraines. You rub the topical over here by your temples, and it helps a lot with those. So those are kind of the 4 consumption methods. And next, let's talk about dosage. Dose refers to the measured amount of a medicine or drug that is intended to be taken at one time. While it is important to understand dosing for all consumption methods, the more rapid onset from inhalation and oral mucosal methods, and because topicals are very regional, a patient can usually dose that themselves. They will know what they need. They'll know if they need more or less. Dosage is fundamentally important when we are talking about the ingestion method of consumption. Again, I say start low and go slow, because a lot of edible companies might provide you with one of these fun dosing charts, like the one on the right here. However, this might not be true for every patient. It might not be super accurate for every person. So it again is very important to understand dosages. This would be a great conversation to have with your physician or your cannabis nurse. Sometimes bud tenders will be able to help you out on this front, but it is very important to talk to somebody who has that expertise when it comes to the dosage and what you are looking for relief for. All right. And finally, I really wanted to talk about what it means to be a responsible cannabis consumer. So this includes responsible purchases, responsible storage, and responsible consumption. The cannabis industry here in Colorado, and I mean throughout the nation, is an incredibly regulated market. We make sure that our products are tracked from seed to sale. But once you guys leave the dispensary with the product, that responsibility is then transferred to you. As a first step of responsible purchase, I very much recommend that people go to a dispensary for their cannabis purchases. Why go to a dispensary rather than just purchase that Whole Foods CBD? It's because the market here is, again, very regulated, and you will ensure that the product has the cannabinoids that you're looking for and has been rigorously tested. And the next thing that I will talk about is responsible storage. Responsible storage is incredibly important, especially if you have people in your household who should not be ingesting cannabis, such as like minors or children. Regardless of if there is THC in the product, please ensure that you are storing this in a place that is either locked or hidden away from people who should not be ingesting that product in your home. Again, the responsibility is shifted to you once you take the product from the dispensary, and we hate to hear about situations where people who should not have access do somehow get access to these products. And again, just wrapping up on responsible consumption, just remember the phrase start low, go slow. I say that it's particularly important with ingestion, but that it's important for every consumption method, really. You can always have more, but once it's in your bloodstream, it's really hard to ameliorate it if you are feeling a little bit too much. And then finally, I kind of want to note that while cannabis can enrich a lot of lives, it has helped my life so much. Some users have an issue with moderation. A very small minority of cannabis users can become addicted to cannabis. It's called cannabis use disorder. It's those cases where people cannot stop using even when it interferes with their lives. If you are dealing with an issue where you feel that you cannot stop the cannabis consumption, there are resources that you can find. Again, I would recommend Leaf 411 if you're dealing with anything like that. All right, so I'm going to open it up to questions. And while we have that questions going, I will put some Terrapin information up if you do want to come check us out.
Penny, thanks so much. I've been a part of a number of these, and you've been a part of a number of these, and this continues to mature as an industry, and we learn so much more every single year that goes by. As you mentioned, there are a number of states that you're expanding into, and a number of states are either looking at or have approved the use of marijuana publicly, not just medicinally. So that's interesting. So let me ask you a few questions, and then we'll get to our questions from our group. And I encourage everyone to ask as many as you can. We have a number of minutes to still get more information out there for you. So one of the questions I have is, I know you talked a little bit about quality control, but one of the criticisms of the industry is that, how does the consumer know, and how can they feel confident that the ingredient levels that are in that mixture, whether it be some CBD or marijuana, are not going to be harmful? We have rigorous testing of products that we consume all throughout our lives that are regulated. This industry is still brand new. So how does a consumer know that they're getting what they actually expect to be getting, and there's no harmful either pesticides or ingredients in there that may not necessarily be what they should be taking, given the product that they're buying?
Definitely. By the way, my cat is coming to say hello to everyone. Say hello to Bertha. When it comes to knowing what's in your product and ensuring that that's not going to be harmful for you, of course, we can't guarantee with 100% certainty that a certain cannabinoid isn't going to interact negatively with an individual patient. But again, this is something that is really solved by ensuring that you're receiving your product from a dispensary. In Colorado, I know that there might be some doubts, but there's no doubt that there is an intense testing process. We have to be able to tell you what percentage of THC, what percentage of CBD is in the plant. So that is one way to kind of ensure that you are getting the product that you definitely want to. When it comes to things like pesticides and issues that might arise from that, the industry is still definitely evolving, because that does become an issue. I have heard and experienced some negative effects from ingesting products that had pesticides. More and more, we're seeing people create certifications such as organic certifications. I know that the city of Boulder has rolled out a program to ensure that you're not using certain pesticides, and you will get some sort of labeling on your packaging that ensures that. So as we continue to evolve, you're going to have more and more indicators of whether, pesticides have been used on your product and what exactly is in it.
So still evolving, but consumer beware. Make sure you're paying attention to it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And one of the other questions, and a doctor raised this on a previous session, is one of the challenges for consumers going into your locations is, or any location, not just yours, is that finding the right person to talk to, because often the people that are behind the counters may not necessarily be the most knowledgeable. So as a consumer, how do I know who to speak to in your locations, specifically, because you run an organization like this? How do we know who to talk to?
So again, you're definitely correct that the standards for bud tenders is not necessarily consistent across all organizations. I can say at Terrapin, we do rigorously educate our bud tenders. So I would like to think if you come to a Terrapin in particular, you'll be able to find somebody who does have a lot of medical information. But as a consumer, I really recommend that you do that research a little bit beforehand. I really recommend reaching out to Leaf 411. Again, if you are looking for very specific medical benefit. I think that that is the best resource. I think it's best to come into the dispensary as educated as possible rather than seeking the education at the dispensary, because it's not going to be consistent and you might get different information. So I really recommend just educating yourself externally with the assistance of either a physician or one of those cannabis nurses at Leaf 411.
Wonderful. Thank you. Um, Question is, what is hemp oil? Does it does it have anything to do with CBDs? I think they're trying to say. My hemp oil does not give any information other than property blend of 0.75 g MCT. I'm not sure what that is, and full spectrum hemp extract from aerial parts. Hemp phytonutrients 6.25 milligrams. So I think she's trying to get a better understanding of what all that stuff means.
Totally. So I definitely understand the question. Again, hemp and cannabis are similar plants, but hemp plants will have less than 0.3% THC. That's just the federal regulation around that. When it comes to purchasing CBD products, I, again, would still recommend going to a dispensary where you will get the more accurate testing information. There are some CBD companies who will ship across the country, who are a nationwide thing, who do provide testing results on their websites. And that's something that I really recommend looking for if you are going to purchase CBD anywhere outside of a dispensary. Just ensure that you can see what type of product it is, how much CBD is in it. So it sounds like some of that information is on your product label to whoever answered that question. And frequently, if you visit the websites of people who provide testing results, they will also have explanations of what each of those things mean. I don't want to waste too much time going too deep into it, but I really recommend that be a route, visiting a website, because they will have not only information about the product in general, but they will usually have batch information, so you know exactly what the batch you have received has within it.
Excellent. Rosemary Evans asks, I use CBD topicals and I find the labeling very confusing. I don't know how to compare the products. Is 1% in product A the same as 1% in product B? I've spent a lot of money buying these products and trying to find the one that works best for her.
Mm-hmm. And again, a very confusing topic, so I definitely understand. I will make one recommendation on topicals. You're going to want to make sure that whatever topical you do purchase has something that says transdermal on the packaging, because otherwise it's just sitting on top of your arm. It's not necessarily being absorbed into your system. So that's one thing that I would say is very important to look for. As far as reading the labels, you know, there is consistency, you know, 1% or whatever the milligrams are stated on the box is going to be pretty consistent across products if you're purchasing them through reputable vendors. If I had one recommendation for this person, I would check out the website Mary's Nutritionals. They have some of the best topical products that I have ever purchased. I use that for my muscle dysfunction. So again, Mary's Nutritionals. They also have a very extensive library and glossary so that you can find out what all of these terms really mean, just because I don't want to dive too deep on that. Be a little concise.
All right, well, here's a question. How do I know which ingestion method I should use? Is there a best way you prefer?
So again, there's pros and cons to every consumption method. If you're dealing with some sort of flare up, for me, my muscles will spasm sometimes. And so what I'll do is in inhalation method, because that's going to give me the relief as quickly as I want it. You know, with the tinctures, that will also rapidly onset, but if you do have the isolated CBD, again, that will take time to build in your body. You might not see that instant relief. So for me, it depends on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for instant relief, I'll go with inhalation. If I'm looking for length of symptom relief, if I want hours of symptom relief rather than uh, about an hour, I will go with an edible. It just depends on what you want to use it for.
Hey, here's a question. This is an interesting one. Which strains are good for depression and dull mentality, or forgetfulness or slow thinking?
So again, with the strain classifications, if you're looking for something that's going to give you energy and not take it away from you, what you're going to want to look for is more sativa leaning hybrids or sativa plants. You know, some of those pure sativa strains include, I believe, Durban Poison. That's actually the only pure sativa that I am aware of. But if you're looking for a product that has a high sativa content, it's usually going to be those strains that kind of smell citrusy. They kind of have the uplifting scent. I always say it, your nose knows. You know, when I smell a product and I feel lighter, I know that when I am ingesting it, my body's going to react in a better way, in a lighter way. I know that that becomes difficult during COVID because we can't necessarily smell products at this point, but you can usually ask the bud tender and they'll be able to tell you at least what type of smell is going on. I notice with indicas, it's a little bit more earthy, a little bit more like the earth smell. So I would say for depression and for lifting your mood, definitely look for sativa products.
And does CBD affect blood thickness?
I Man, I literally just did some research on this. I don't believe that it affects blood thickness, but it does affect how open your veins are, or and the channels of where your blood is going through. It does affect how open those are. So if you are on a blood thinner, I believe that you should definitely be asking your physician and or a cannabis nurse before you start incorporating that into your routine, just as a safety measure.
So probably marijuana smoking or ingestion does have a constriction effect, like cigarette smoking to some degree.
It's actually not going to be constricting it. It's going to be opening it up a little bit more.
Oh,
It has anti-inflammatory effects, especially the CBD. That's what really helps out with the pain. Usually, you know, like ibuprofen is an
interesting.
anti-inflammatory. Similarly, CBD will do that.
So this is a marketing question. Are there any discounts available for seniors? It's a bit pricey.
Oh yeah, definitely. I understand not wanting to spend too much, especially when you're just trying them out. So at Terrapin, we actually have a 10% off senior discount all of the time. So that could be a good, we could be a good source for you there. A lot of places will actually have a senior discount. If you are curious about it, it's generally good to just call the dispensary and ask the bud tender.
Excellent. Does CBD affect blood pressure?
I think that indirectly, again, because of the anti-inflammatory properties, it would affect blood pressure. I don't necessarily know the whole medical background on that, so I don't want to mislead you. I would assume that there would be some effect on blood pressure. I think it would be good for people who have a little bit of hypertension, who might have a higher blood pressure, because again, it's going to open up those channels where your blood is flowing and kind of help you relax a little bit more. So I would assume so, but I definitely would research that a little bit more, discuss that with your physician and with your cannabis nurse.
Excellent. Um, so CBD information is confusing, which we've talked about, and the price range is very wide. Um, where does one go to get simple, accurate information on these products, and the reliability of the product? And why is the price range so high? Are you paying what are you, does the price equate to the quality or the benefits?
Um, so I will put something in the chat where you can find some very good information about. Oh wait, that went to all panelists. If can you send that to the group, Al? So there's one website that
Yes.
has both um, videos and just text information. It's probably the most comprehensive CBD information that I have found on the internet, and it seems to be the most accurate as well. It's hempsley.com. And regarding the price of CBD, I definitely empathize there because it can get very pricey, especially if you're trying to use it on that consistent basis, so it's consistently working in your system. You know, price doesn't necessarily indicate quality, unfortunately. But the high price of CBD is because it is less available in the plant. There's just far less CBD in many of these plant strains, and isolating it from the rest of the plant is a little bit more of an extensive, a little bit more of a complicated process. And a lot of companies who are purchasing the materials that you need to extract that from the plant, you know, those things cost a lot of money, and that cost is passed down to the consumer, unfortunately.
Um, when you advise getting products from a dispensary in order to be sure the product is what as described, does that mean a medical dispensary, or are you referring to any outlet such as Terrapin?
This will be any dispensary, at least in Colorado. The testing, again, is very rigorous, and with labeling laws, we have to put a lot of that information on the product. So you will at least know how much THC, how much CBD is in a product.
What's the difference between the products that you could get in a dispensary versus a medical dispensary?
So it's a little bit funny because the only difference between a medical plant and a recreational plant is the tag that you put on it.
Mm.
They're not entirely different things, you know, they're not working physiologically in a different way. What is a benefit of receiving your medical card and becoming a medical patient in Colorado is you can purchase more product so that you don't have to visit the store as frequently. You can get different products that have higher concentrations because some people dealing with very serious medical conditions need higher doses that you cannot receive as a recreational consumer. And the final really good benefit of being a medical patient is that you pay less taxes. So that helps out with the cost issues of trying these products.
Person wants to know, can I grow and process my own CBD?
You can grow your own cannabis. I think that isolating your own CBD might be a quite difficult process on your own. I personally haven't seen technology where people can personally do that by themselves, just because it's such a complicated chemical process. I personally have cultivated my own cannabis, and I very much recommend it as plant therapy is very real. It's nice to take care of your plants. But as far as extracting the CBD, unfortunately, that might be a little bit more difficult to do on your own.
So this is a question that impacts a lot of people as marijuana use and CBD use with THC continues to grow. Um, if I purchase a THC product, can I travel outside of Colorado?
So no, unfortunately, because it is not federally legal yet, you cannot cross state lines with these products. I have heard that they are a little bit lenient when it comes to getting on an airplane if you're going from one legal state to another, but I'm fairly certain that that is still federally illegal. So I would not recommend this. There are companies, again, that will ship to all 50 states regardless of their legalization status. So those would be products that you would be safe to take with you across state lines. But other than that, anything with THC, keep it in Colorado.
So that's interesting. So there are marijuana companies that if you were in a state that it was illegal in, they would ship into you.
So these are generally not marijuana companies. Oop. They're usually hemp companies because, again, hemp has become federally legal because of the 2018
So it would
farm
be
bill.
CBDs from hemp, not CBDs
Yeah,
with
they would be
THC.
extracting the cannabinoids from a hemp plant, not a
Got it.
not a cannabis plant. Yeah.
Got it. Gail wants to know, what is the word you're using before the number 411?
Leaf. Leaf. Right?
Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I know it's hard.
Um, this question says that, or this questionnaire is asking, I've read that marijuana increases the chance of having a stroke or possible heart damage. Is that accurate? I have had a stroke and currently have congestive heart failure, but I still like to enjoy the effects of cannabis, especially the high, and also help with chronic pain. So what is there an answer there?
I do think that there would be a medical consensus at this point. One statistic that it's important to understand when we're talking about looking for medical information is that 94% of the studies that are on cannabis are looking for harmful effects. They're not looking for that medicinal benefit, and that's globally. So it's going to be hard to find information that's kind of looking at it in that positive light. So I don't know that we have the most accurate information on that particular topic at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think talk to your doctor might be always the best answer there.
Yeah.
I have a medical card and recently got some seeds. Is there a company that can help grow some plants for me? Or is there someone that I can speak to about the equipment I need to grow plants?
So they do have a lot of specific cannabis cultivation businesses across the state now. As far as having somebody else help you and come into your home, I don't necessarily know that we have services like that yet. And I would also recommend to this person, you're working with seeds, so that becomes a little bit more of a difficult process. You can also purchase as a medical patient clones, and so those are already little baby plants that just haven't had the chance to grow. They're just cut from a regular cannabis plant, and they work a little bit better when it comes to home cultivation. But as far as a specific company that might be able to help you, I actually don't know one off of the top of my head. But if
There
you,
are hydroponic stores
yeah.
in Boulder and Broomfield, and they have complete systems that you can purchase for in-home cultivation.
Yeah, definitely. And the technology is very interesting. I love those conversations with those salespeople. So you'll learn a lot of new stuff.
Um, do people using tincture leave the house high?
So it will depend a lot on the tincture that you're using. So with tinctures that are sold in dispensaries, again, you can buy isolated CBD. In that case, you will feel no psychoactive effects. Again, if you're using hemp CBD, you again will probably not feel that high effect. But if you are purchasing from a dispensary and you have a ratio of about 1-to-1 THC CBD, you might feel some of those psychoactive effects. So if you're really not looking for that, definitely go with, I believe they have 20-to-1 CBD to THC ratio tinctures in stores right now. So that might be a better option for you if you really don't want those psychoactive effects.
Um, the pricing information at the website you described, they're asking for, can you go over that again? Because you spoke pretty quickly about it.
The pricing information just regarding CBD.
CBDs, I guess, and any other products. Do you have pricing information on your websites?
Yeah, so Terrapin actually has an online menu at terrapincarestation.com. We have menus for every single one of our 6 retail locations. It will not be able to incorporate the senior discount, but just know that you'll be paying about 10% less. And again, to discuss why CBD products might be a little bit more expensive, it's due to the fact that it's a little bit harder to extract CBD from the cannabis plant or the hemp plant. The technology is a little bit newer, so it's a little bit more expensive to get those products. And so that cost is then passed on to the consumer.
Yeah, and there's a question about a specific product like hybrid blueberry. This person really prefers that, but can't find it on a regular basis. Is that something that you carry regularly at Terrapin?
So that might be one of our more regular strains that we carry, but I will say that there is a service. It's called Weed Maps, and you can generally look up by strain what you want to see.
And that's, can you repeat that and spell it if you
Yeah,
can?
I will post that in the chat for everybody.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's always hard to to articulate clearly on these Zoom
I
calls.
know. I'm a little frozen. Oh no.
We'll get it up there.
Yeah.
This person wants to know, where can I purchase affordable sativa seeds?
Um, Honestly, with the seed market, I don't necessarily have a lot of experience in this, in that. So I'm not totally sure where you'll be able to find consistent ones. Again, I really do recommend growing from the clone, because then first of all, you'll know it's a female plant. You know, if you learn a little bit about cannabis, you know that the flowers only come on the female plants. And when you grow from seeds, you can't guarantee that those will be females. And if you have a male plant in the room, it will mess up your whole crop. So again, I'm really recommending go
Where
with
do you buy the clones? Does Terrapin carry the clones?
So Terrapin does not carry clones, but there is a place called Denver Clone Store, and they do. And I believe Rocky Mountain High also has some available clone options. And what I've put in the chat for everybody, those are two websites through which you can search for specific products or specific strains in their search bar. So if you're looking for something very specific, then I would check out both of those websites. And I will put the Terrapin website in as well for you, Debbie.
And they're asking, is Leaf 411 a website or a phone number?
So it has both. You can go to leaf411.org or call 844 Leaf 411. And again, they are available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that's when you'd be able to talk to one of these cannabis nurses.
Well, this was incredibly informative, and and every year, as you said many times, the information changes so much and becomes more effective for people. Your presentations are very informative and really fun. We thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. And we wish you well. And we thank everyone who joined us today as well, and hope to see you in one of our next call series. Thank you so much.